Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel Upcycled Adulting, where I am here to help you upcycle your real life into your best life by creating healthy habits, overcoming obstacles, and growing to accomplish your goals. Today, I'm going to be talking about fear. This video is a little delayed because it was meant to be run on the week of Halloween, but unfortunately, I received a call that my grandmother was at the end of her life, and I moved in with her to care for her in her final days. So for that reason, I'm actually going to include grief in my list of fears, and that means I'll be talking about 8 of our most common fears and how to address them to prevent them from holding you back in your life. So without further ado, let's get this started. Number one, I want to talk about grief a little bit. I have struggled for many years with a fear of grief and loss. I have lost my grandfather, my father, and now my grandmother. My grandparents were like second parents to me. I was the child of teen parents, lived with my grandparents as a kid with my parents, and then always kind of relied upon them as another set of role models or parents, and they were very involved in my upbringing. So losing them has been really challenging for me. Many years ago, when I was handling my grandmother's medical care, I actually went to therapy to learn how to cope with the impending grief of my grandmother's passing, and obviously that's because I was so fearful of that grief. My grandmother is not just important to me because of her role in my life, but also because of the connection she has always provided to my dad, to my childhood memories. She has been a witness to my life throughout. One of the things that I came to realize regarding fear of grief is that there is actually a way to avoid grief and loss. And that is to not have those relationships, right? To not have deep connections or deep loving relationships with other people. Then you don't have to worry about it. Knowing that helped me feel less helpless, and helped me feel like I could make a decision here, right? My 2 sisters were not as close with my grandmother. They were relatively estranged, and so they are not experiencing grief in the same way that I am. But if I had my choice, I would rather have the grief and have had the relationship. In this process, I am being incredibly gentle with myself, allowing myself to rest more, minimizing other changes or stress in my life. I am leaning into help. I have been offered a lot of help, and I'm asking for a lot of help. And I am allowing myself to experience the grief. In most cases with fear, the tighter we hold on, the more it holds us back, the more difficult it is, the more painful it is, right? Fear tends to, in our emotional or mindset experiences, be very similar to fear in our physical experience, right? Where it's like we need to not look, we need to not try so hard to push against it because or to perseverate on it or to think about it, right? I remember one time I was ziplining. I love ziplining, but I had to rappel in the zip line, and I found out the hard way that I'm terrified of rappelling, right? The idea, even wearing a harness, of jumping off and down was just the most ridiculous and scary thing to me. And I asked the guide how I could get down without rappelling, and he said, I can push you because there's no other way down. And I had to come to a place where I just jumped. I didn't think about it because thinking about it created so much fear, and it was so overwhelming that I didn't know how to deal with it. And I was far more afraid of him pushing me than me just jumping, because at least then I felt like I had a choice. I wasn't so helpless. And so very much so with all of the fears I'm going to talk about today, one of the things to know, or one of the things that's important to keep in mind, is that the more that we look at it, the more that we're afraid of it, the more that we stew in it, the more scary it tends to be. As much as some of these things you might think, oh, if I stew in it for longer, I'll come up with a great solution and then I won't be afraid anymore. Very rarely is that actually true. Oftentimes, we just need to equip ourselves and do the thing. And that is very true with grief. You are not going to white knuckle your way through grief and have it go well, right? It's better in the case of grief in particular to just lean in and let it be what it is, right? To drop your expectation and to go with it. And wherever possible, again, be gentle with yourself. So right now, I'm doing this live and I am back at work because that is helpful for me. It gives me a little structure in my day, but I am expecting a lot less of myself in output. I am being a lot more gentle with myself regarding things like, asking other people to bring me food or getting more help with the day-to-day tasks because I need to create this space to experience the grief, right? I might be great right now, and an hour from now, I might feel like I was hit by a wrecking ball. And just allowing myself to move through that process without trying to hold on and prevent that emotional overwhelm is important. It might seem like it, but I know that grief will not swallow me whole. I know that I will come out on the other side. And so it's important to recognize that. It's important to recognize this is a normal, natural human experience. We're all going to have it, and we will survive. We will survive. So that's what I got there. The next one I want to talk about, number 2, is real fear. So grief is a very real fear. It is something that is bound to happen in your life. And there are other things that are real fears. Maybe you have fear about financial catastrophe or financial ruin because you're struggling financially. Maybe you have real fear about health conditions, real fear for the decisions your adult children are making. I know I've been there. Having real fear is a part of life. The scary stuff is going to come up. And I feel like in 2023, it just feels like from a global perspective, scary stuff keeps happening in the world. Understanding that there's only so much you can do about real fear and that doing what you can matters and makes a difference is really helpful. The exercise I really like to implement with both real fear and fear of the unknown, which I'm going to be talking about later, is I call it WCID. What can I do? What can I do? Right? Because feeling like there's something you can do is really helpful. I also use this technique for stress a lot, and it's included in my stress ebook, which is over 100 pages of content related to stress, over 20 resources to help you reduce your stress and overwhelm, and to help you do so sustainably in a way that you can maintain a lower stress and overwhelm level. I will put a link in the comments so that you know how to get a hold of that book. But for now, I want to talk about it related to real fear and fear of the unknown. Essentially, what you're going to do is set a timer and brainstorm all the things you can do. It's okay. We're not going to censor ourselves. Usually somewhere on my list appears, magic wand, make it go away, which we know we can't do, right? Make it go away because that's what we want when we're afraid of something real. And then we're going to go through without judgment. We're just going to find something that is approachable that we can do. Something that is small, and that will help us feel like we've accomplished something in this way. The reason this matters so much is because keeping ourselves from feeling completely helpless, giving ourselves something to do, giving ourselves the dopamine hit of having accomplished something really helps address real fear. And it matters. In addition, it helps move the needle to potentially improve the situation that you're actually afraid of. In doing a brainstorm, this helps you think a little outside the box without that like, oh, that's a dumb idea. Oh, I could never do that, right? Which is what we tend to do a lot of times. I've used this technique in the past many, many times. One time, this technique actually landed me living at my sister's house, right? It's not something I would ever have thought to do because it just seems like such a ridiculous imposition. But it came up and it was like, you know what? That's not a crazy idea, actually. And that really would help in the situation that I'm in right now financially and familially, it would help me a lot. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, to be honest. So getting some ideas out there on paper and taking action on something can really help with real fear. The next one is fear of rejection. I think that a lot of us have a profound fear of rejection, whether it's fear of rejection and trying to do something that we don't know how to do, that we're more unfamiliar with. Maybe it's fear of rejection as in putting yourself out there for a job or a promotion. Fear of rejection in our relationships. And fear of rejection sometimes plays into fear of conflict, right? They kind of go hand in hand because we fear conflict because we're worried about the real fear there is rejection or loss, right? That's why we fear conflict. We're afraid of the grief that comes with loss. We're afraid of the rejection that could happen, and that keeps us from approaching the issues. I like to say that I have come to a place in my mindset, and I just want you to hear me out on this, where I would rather be rejected by somebody else than to self-reject. I know. It's very big as an idea, but to understand that when we don't put ourselves out there, when we don't share, this is bothering me in the relationship, when we don't ask for the job, the promotion, the raise, right? The kind of relationship we want, the boundaries we want, whatever that looks like, when we don't ask, the answer is no. It's always no. No one is going to psychically figure out that you want that thing. That's an unfair expectation. In addition, when we don't go for the things that we want, we are being untrue to ourselves. We are not living our authentic selves. We are not being genuine, right? Because we're suppressing what matters to us or what we want. And again, the answer is always no. You are rejecting your own desires, your own needs, your own wants, right? When you don't pursue them. It's better for someone else to say no than for you to slam the door in your own face, because that is a betrayal of yourself. And that's something that matters more. And when we get that into our minds, when we get clear on that, it makes it a lot easier to start putting ourselves out there, right? I had a friend of mine when she was raising her kids that she didn't want them to ask for things like at other people's houses because she felt like it was rude, right? And I always told my kids, ask. The worst thing that you're going to hear is no. Let them say no. Be gracious about it. And it matters to teach your kids how to be gracious about it. But ask, because if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. And especially when it's someone close to you, especially when it's someone you're in a relationship with, especially when it relates to your career and you're talking to your supervisor who knows you, right? Especially in those situations, or it's completely low stakes. You're asking for a job from a stranger. If they say no, they say no, right? You're not breaking anything there. It matters so much to be able to ask. And I always joke about this because one of my kids really took this to heart. Okay. She really took this to heart. And I cannot tell you the things, like we joke all the time in our family about the things that have happened for her just because she wasn't afraid to ask. She would just be like, I remember she was a little girl and we had a news team for the newspaper at our house. We had a writer and a photographer at our house doing a lifestyle piece about being home on a snow day because we had 5 kids and that's just a fun thing to kind of share on a snow day. And she asked the photographer if she could hold his camera. And he said yes. And it's the funniest thing because there she is, this little tiny, 6-year-old holding this camera, which by the way, I kind of wish he had not said yes. She's holding this professional camera that has to cost thousands of dollars, right? But she wanted to see it and she was curious about it. She asked and he said yes. Again, thankfully nothing happened to that camera. But my point is you won't know if you don't ask. Consistently, she has asked for things and being given them, whether it is extra credit work at school or an extension on a paper or a job that she really wants or an opportunity, right, that she wants. She asks. And that has made all the difference in the world. And by the way, as her parent, I have said no a lot of times to her because sometimes she asks for crazy stuff, but it helps. It does help you get the things you want in life. Number 4 is fear of other people's opinions. Y'all might want to sit down for this one because it's going to be hard. I'm going to give you some hard truths regarding fear of other people's opinions. Fear of other people's opinions have nothing to do with other people. They are about you. And I know you may have heard that before, but I think more specifically to point out that the fear of other people's opinions are rooted in your own judgmental self, in your own self struggling with comparison. Okay. I've heard people say so many times that other people aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about their own lives and their own stuff and what they've got going on. And I never believed that. And the reason I never believed that is because of how judgmental I was. The more negatively judgmental you are, the more you perceive that other people are judging you negatively. It is absolutely a reflection of what you do. Okay. After changing the way I think about other people and the way that I see things in other people's lives to a place of being intentionally and deliberately supportive, thinking the best of others, seeing the good, now I always think that that's what people think of me. I always think that when other people are looking at me or thinking about my family or my life, that what they're thinking are good things. Because what I'm thinking are good things. That's what I'm thinking about them. That's what I'm thinking about myself, right? The entire fear of other people's opinions is a projection of what you think about yourself and the way that you judge others. If you are highly critical, you will believe that other people are highly critical. All right. This is entirely about you. This has nothing to do with them. And if you want to overcome the fear of other people's opinions, it's essential that you address this highly critical part of yourself. Okay. That you recognize that that is entirely where it's coming from. Because here's the deal. Even if other people are also highly critical, they're thinking of you in a highly critical way. It does not matter because they are bound by that. They are imprisoned by that. Not you. You're not imprisoned by somebody else's thoughts, but you are imprisoned by your own. And your fear of other people thinking critical things or thinking negative things about you is coming from inside you. It's coming from inside you. And the first thing that you have to do is address that. I know for some people, that was a really hard thing for me to come to terms with or to understand because I think of myself as a nice and kind person, right? I want to believe that I'm nice and kind and compassionate and recognizing that my fears about other people thinking negatively about me were actually rooted in the fact that I think negatively about me and I think negatively about others was pretty jarring and pretty unsettling. And of course, I had to come to the first one, right? I think that because I think negative things about myself. And then I came to the second one and I was like, ooh, I also think that because I think negative things about other people, right? That made a huge difference for me, but it was really important for me to come to that place where I understood that, as painful as it was, and make the adjustment and monitor the way that I think, right? Make those mindset shifts to really deal with that situation. Number 5 is fear of failure. Now, we're going to talk about both fear of failure and fear of success. A lot of times people think that fear of success is fear of failure, right? They get these mixed up. And a lot of times people don't really understand fear of success. So they're just like, I'm not afraid to be successful. I'm afraid I'm going to fail, right? And so we're going to kind of talk about these two things hand in hand. Fear of failure is really common and it prevents you from accomplishing the things you want to accomplish. Listen, you can avoid fear of failure. Okay, I just want everybody to know you can avoid fear of failure by never putting yourself out there, by never trying anything new, by never doing anything that will help you grow or accomplish your goals or create the life you want. Okay, you can avoid failure. The only way to avoid it is to stay exactly where you are and to never try anything. Okay, don't try. That's the only way. Our lives, we as humans, are designed to fail and to fail repeatedly and to learn from failure. And so, if you choose to avoid failure, you will not be able to learn, grow, or accomplish the things you want to accomplish. All right. You have been failing since birth. You failed the first time you tried to roll over. You failed the first time you tried to speak. You failed the first time you tried to walk. You failed the first time you tried to ride a bike. You have failed many times, right? And if you didn't overcome that failure, if you didn't learn from that, right? Oh, I tried to walk this way and it didn't work. Oh, I was riding my bike and I wasn't pedaling fast enough, or I was jiggling the steering wheel too much and that's why I fell off. If you don't have that failure experience, you can't learn the thing. You can't do the thing. We're all going to fail. One of the things that helps me a lot with fear of failure is to create a failure goal. If you create a failure goal, you make the failure a win. And what does that mean? That means you say, once a year I have to fail. Once every 6 months I have to fail. Once a month I have to fail. Once a week I have to fail. Okay, that's kind of advanced. Maybe you don't want to be failing once a week yet. But when you do it, you're proud of yourself because it means that you tried, right? And for this, I love the affirmation, I am brave for trying. Failure is proof. Failure is proof of courage. Failure is proof of bravery. That's what it is. Failure isn't proof of not being smart enough or not being strong enough or not being committed enough. It's proof that you have guts, right? And that's a good thing. And when we start thinking of failure and reframing failure in that way, it's a lot easier to overcome fear of failure. It's just a simple reframe. Now, fear of success can be a lot more complicated. And the reason why fear of success can be more complicated is two things. And I want you to self-check for these things, okay? Particularly this first one, all right? Sometimes people fear success because they have scarcity mentality and they fear having more than their fair share of success. It makes them feel greedy, right? I already have a good life. It's not right for me to want more. I'm greedy. Wanting my business to be successful is embarrassing. Wanting to be successful in my career makes me too ambitious, right? And this can be a big problem, especially for women who struggle with good girl syndrome, right? Or who struggle with being too much, right? You feel like it's going to make you too much. If you're too successful, you're going to be too much. And this could be in your career, in your relationships, in any particular area of your life, but it will prevent you from achieving success because you don't feel worthy. And I talk all the time about how deserving you are, right? This is a worth problem. You do not have to do anything to feel worthy. You don't have to define success in the same way other people define success. You can define success any way you want. I personally have never really defined success in financial terms. Not, now before you get in my comments, not because I have financial scarcity mindset, but because what I want in life is just different than maybe what other people want in life, right? I have extremely abundant financial success, but having financial success wasn't my overall goal, right? And you may be the same way. You may want success in your relationships. That was probably the most important thing to me. You may want success in creating peace. You may want success in accomplishing a certain title at work. You may want success in various other ways, and that's okay. It's okay to want success. It's okay to seek success. It's okay to work for success. It's okay to desire success. You are not taking from anyone else. There is an abundance opportunity for success, right? And really, the biggest things that keep people from achieving success is the inability to define what success means to them, and a challenge in mindset about your own worthiness for success, or a belief in scarcity for success. In addition, people sometimes struggle with success because they fear that they will not be able to handle it, right? This is particularly a thing when it comes to business, or when it comes to even motherhood or relationships, that people will feel like, yeah, but when I get there, I won't know what to do. Like, I've never seen a healthy relationship. I've never seen a healthy marriage. And so even if I found the right person and I had a successful relationship, I think it's all going to blow up. I'm not going to know how to maintain that. I'm not going to know how to do that well. I'm not going to know how to run my company when I have more than 5 employees. I'm not going to know how to handle that money if I have more of it, right? If I have financial success. It's really important to recognize that the reason you don't know how to handle that now is because you haven't gone to all the steps between now and having that success. And in that path, you will acquire new skills, you will learn new things, and you will come in contact with people who can mentor you or help you when you get to that place. You're not equipped yet because you're not there yet. When you get there, you will be equipped. And trusting in that process matters. It matters to addressing fear of success. Next, we're going to talk about fear of the unknown. Again, in fear of the unknown, I think it's really important to do the WCID exercise, and to do what we can to make the unknown known. All right. Sometimes making the unknown known is challenging. Sometimes it's impossible. As I said earlier in this video, when I went to care for my grandmother, her cancer had metastasized to her brain. I have never had that experience. I've never known somebody who's had that happen. I've never cared for someone in their last days. And so I had no idea, right? I had no idea. I had to trust that I would figure it out. And I also had to trust that I had resources. Who can I call, right? Can I Google things? What can I do to find out more? Now, it's important in fear of the unknown to not get stuck in a place of research, right? We don't want to get stuck in a place where we're constantly researching, or we're perseverating, or we're getting hypervigilant, thinking about all the various things that can happen, because we really can't make a choice. We really can't do anything until the unknown is more knowable. But what we can do is figure out, how do I address this fear in this moment where I don't know? Okay. Now, that may mean doing something like making a doctor's appointment to make it knowable, but it may also mean cleaning out your linen closet so you're distracted and you're not constantly fixated, right? It might mean checking out a book from the library so that you can be more prepared, because you do know what's going on, but you don't necessarily know what to do about it. Might mean joining a support group, seeking therapy, finding a social worker who can help you bring all the pieces together. So really understanding, what can I do? What is my next step, right? How can I equip myself better? Who can be a resource for me to help me through this process? And also finding ways to distract yourself, to do things that are a little bit more mindless, busy work, so that you can not stew, can really make a huge difference. And finally, the last one that we're going to talk about is fear of decision making. A lot of us are really afraid of making decisions. We're afraid of making the wrong decisions. Sometimes this comes from our experiences in the past, our childhood, having been punished, right, for making decisions that didn't go well, dealing with the consequences of decisions that were painful or difficult. And so we have a self-doubt about making decisions. I think it's really important to recognize that when we don't make decisions, that is a decision. Okay, that is a decision. and to have mindfulness that when you make decisions, you have the opportunity to make adjustments or to tweak those decisions or to address them differently. I like to say that when you make a decision, it's like you're the driver of the car and maybe you made the wrong turn, but you drove there. So you know where you are. You know where you might have gone wrong. Maybe you can backtrack. Maybe you can make an adjustment to your path now because you know how you got there. You can learn from that decision and make a new one. There's a lot of different things that you can do, right? But when you're the passenger in the car and you're blindfolded, that's what happens when we don't make decisions. You end up somewhere and you don't know how you got there. You don't know how to make an adjustment. You don't know how to get back. And that makes it even more challenging or problematic. Now, if you're in a place in your life where that's how you've been operating and now you're somewhere and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? This isn't where I want to be. I want you to know that it's not too late to start making decisions, but you may feel in this moment a little paralyzed by really being lost, right? It's okay. That's okay. What we need to do in that space is come back into ourselves. Think about what can we do in this moment. Maybe do that exercise here as well. And start making some small decisions that we can feel confident or good about, right? Not necessarily giant life changers, all right? Because that will help us to start getting some positives, right? Some wins under our belt. I've made a couple decisions and they've gone well, and I feel more confident making the next decision. That can be really, really helpful. In addition, I'm going to tell you, make sure that you subscribe to this channel because in the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about how you can discover yourself and discover your path, how you can reclaim your life, how you can build future you. And these are all really important pieces of making decisions and figuring out how to decide what is for you, what matters most to you, how do you want your life to be, and how can you actually get there. So I want you to make sure that you subscribe. Let me just remind you that you are absolutely amazing and you deserve to live the life that you've been dreaming about. Taking the life that you're living right now and making the tweaks you need to be living the life you want makes all the difference in the world, and I am here to help you do that. So again, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.